Veronica, thank you so much. Um, I joined this meeting for the first time, I think last March in 2021. And somewhere in the past year, there was a very humble yet powerful share by a guy named Tait F. And I just remember being so moved in that moment. And I went back and listened a time or two from our Dropbox. I'm going to put our Dropbox link in the chat. You can find all the speakers of the last couple of years. But when I was becoming the host, I just thought, man, if I could get Tait to come back and share with us one more time, that would be really meaningful to me. And so I have to say, Tait, thank you so much for, we've never met in person, but you agreed. And so the floor is yours. I think you know what to do. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks for asking me. It's an honor and a privilege to be here, be sober, be alive in Alcoholics Anonymous. And thank you guys all for that. My mom thanks you, and even my dad's happy about it. And I don't know if y'all get nervous before you speak, but especially with all these front row sitters and AA book smashers and people high level, I'm in a high level group of people, and I'm just not that guy. And real nice to be here. And so I'm going to tell you, I guess, a little bit about my story, but a lot of, you're in a lot of trouble because I really premeditated and wrote things down and everything. And when I do that, it doesn't go very well, but I'm just going to muddle through it. My name's Tait Fletcher. I'm alcoholic. I was last separated from alcohol January 7th of 1994. I'm 51 years old, and I grew up in northern Michigan. Emotional sobriety, that next level stuff. I've been thinking about this since early on. I remember I was walking around the Friendship Club in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I had a Colt 45 that I carried with me all the time. And then I had this book that a guy had just given me called Search for Serenity. And my sponsor pointed out the contradiction a little bit, right? I never got it. And that's the way I am with blind spots, you guys. It's so obvious to everybody. It's so obvious to me later. But when I'm right in it, I don't understand. It makes sense to me. I'm just trying to stay safe and go through life with the way I thought I had good results before. And maybe that was when I was 17 or 6, but it's what I had. And I go, hey man, I figured that one out. And now I hang on to that for life. And I keep using that tool, much to the dismay of people around me that are like, why does he still need diapers? My sponsor used to say, man, give you books. You're still chewing on the covers. And takes a lot of work to stick around here. Just in the facing of myself, the fact facing that they talk about that nobody likes to do. I guess a little bit of emotional sobriety for me is that I see that stuff as unavoidable. When it comes up and there's something sticky in my soul that's driving me into the steps or into doing something that's uncomfortable or having a conversation I don't want to have, I pray and I try to get emboldened to not avoid that thing, because that's my natural state. I let those things go. I let them pile up, and then my life becomes so heavy that I just can't bear it anymore. Noise gets so loud that I have to take a drink to settle it down. And that'll work for a little while. And then I got the noise that's coming in over the drinks, and there's no drinking that gets the noise away. And kind of the state I was in when I got brought into Alcoholics Anonymous. The first time and the second time, I had a year and some change, and I'd relapsed when I was 21 years old, and I ended up in a subsequent in federal custody later that year. Could really get off track here. So when I first got sober, I got out of this federal entanglement, and I was off a relapse, and before then, it was one of the things I'd gotten myself into a position where I was on brain medication, from Big Pharma, and I got locked up, and I didn't have any brain medication, and your mind adapts to that, and it changes. It's not great to be in that environment and be off your meds and all that. And so, like, when I got out of there, all I thought was, I got to be independently free. If I'm lost in the woods, that I don't need something to take in order to make me be able to live and defend myself. And I really had that feeling since I was a little kid. It wasn't unfamiliar to me. It was the same thing I had with stuff surrounding some people that I grew up with, you know, that were raising me and all that kind of thing. And so I had this idea that I had to be distanced and that I didn't have much safety, right? And so, and I'm 6'4" and 250 pounds, and I look like this, and it's not a great look for that guy to not have control over himself or his emotional state. And I sure didn't, because any emotion that I had, I would follow it. If I'm feeling this way, I got to do something about it, and I got to get after it. You know, in the book Alcoholics Anonymous, it talks about pause when agitated or doubtful. But all I could think of is that, man, I got to get this moving. I got to do something. I got to make this happen, right? And it wasn't until I got to AA and they said, no, if you relax, God will let this unfold, Tait. Be quiet, God will let it unfold. And then the same point, you know, acceptance is the answer to all my problems today, right? Unless I'm drowning, right? And then I need to do some things. I probably should flap around and swim a bit or something like that. And so there's all these contradictory, paradoxical things, you know. I was listening to a friend of mine, he's talking about his life, you know, and he was talking about these things he doesn't like in AA. And he says, you know, feelings aren't facts. People say that all the time. My feelings are facts. They inform me of the world. My feelings are valid, da, 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 da. He's 25 years sober. I'm 17 years sober. I'm like, yeah, cool. I don't think that's what they mean. Ding, the bell goes. We go inside for the meeting. And I'm sitting there thinking about what Lewis has said. What does that mean? Feelings aren't facts. And I go back into like my first year of sobriety. And I remember standing up, picking up my first year chip. And all these people have been saying at the time, and that was in the early mid 90s, you know, that you can't love anybody until you can love yourself. And I'm okay, you're okay. And there's all these books going around and this pop culture kind of stuff, you know. And this dude slapped me, he goes, hey man, this ain't no bucket throw therapy. That's not what Alcoholics Anonymous is. This is a self-development program that you can look into yourself, build a relationship with God so that you can course your life. Like that's what this is about. He says, get busy, man, be helpful to people. And what I found is that I looked like me, but I felt safe physically around most people. And so when a drunk bum would come in stinking, man, I'm over there and I put my arm around. I'm there to help, man. And I'm there to be kind to people that haven't had kindness put on them, because I'm close to that and I don't feel different than that. I walk around looking at the floor. I can't look the clerk at Walgreens in the eye because I'm so ashamed of what I've been in my life. But I can love that guy coming in the door. And when I took my first year chip, I thought, you know, all these things are going around, these sayings going around. But thank God that hasn't been true for me, because I didn't love myself at all. I wanted to kill myself first 2 years steady in my sobriety. But I could love that guy. And I could feel like I had a goddamn purpose, like it mattered that I was there for him that night. And that would get me through that night. And that's the kind of stuff that I built my life on, that people in Alcoholics Anonymous showed. Got to sort out what's true and what's not true. They said, we're in a great outfit here, but there's a bunch of odd goods in here and you got to follow somebody, but be goddamn careful who you follow. And sharing in a general way in Alcoholics Anonymous. There's stuff I would love to share with everybody here that I won't, because I'm not sure how it would hurt me or my family. I don't know what it would be. It's not all sorted out yet. And I don't need to over emote or burden anybody else with that stuff. So I share in a general way here, but I'm happy to speak one-on-one specifically with anybody. I've been sober 28 years. The things that I've done in sobriety, except for 2, are far worse than anything I did while I was drinking, and I got no drinking to blame it on. I got a self-obsessed mind and ambition that blotted out other people in my life, and I lived selfishly that way. Now, that's not the entirety of my recovery. Early on in my recovery, I got sober in Santa Fe, New Mexico, just out of the pen, and then I ended up hooking up with this lady that was 10 years sober. And she just moved in from California, says, I don't have any, I can't have any babies because of my history. And I won't go into her stuff because that's one of those things that I mentioned before. But anyway, we had a baby, this miracle child. And a lot of other things came to light and whatever. And I had feelings about her, and it was about the time OJ had cut his wife's head off. And I remember listening to this lady on Oprah, and she was talking about, she was a psychiatrist, and she says, I can make anybody in this room put hands on me. And people were aghast at that. They thought that was crazy. And she says, in the right circumstances, I could get anybody in here to hit me. But the thing is that you can leave before that happens, before I wind you up like that. I didn't really understand fully what she meant. It's kind of like what Bill is talking about. Until you walk through some life, it's hard to understand what the book that looks true to you really means in your life, overlaying it on your experience. And I had an experience like that with Andrea. And I'm blocking things, everything's coming at me, and I thought, you can leave, you can still leave, and I was able to do that. And I was able to not transgress what little values I had. And it's those little things, those little steps. A friend of mine is a special forces guy, and a lot of people talk about heroes around him. And he says, a hero happens in a choice. A hero's not a thing. It's not me. It's choices. And we all get that every day, depending where we turn. And then I feel about myself one way or another based on that, But what I learned when Lewis was talking about feelings aren't facts, that my life is different than my thoughts. My life is different than my thoughts. And my thoughts are often that Mr. Hyde thought, that negative thought. And that's not what my life is. And until I go through a 4-step, I can't get objective and see that. Because I'm sitting in that meeting thinking about feelings aren't facts. I'm looking at 100 people in the room, and the thought comes into my mind, you're just as capable as anybody in this room. And I'd never had that thought in my whole life. And I thought, man, I figure I'm a loser, and I'm not going to win the race, and I won't even show up, and things are probably going to go bad. I'm going to end up in prison or on welfare. And that's when I'm 9 years old, right? That's my outlook. I wanted to kill myself from the gate, you guys. I just was not pleased to be here. And so then I'd start thinking about my life in that meeting. 17 years sober, this whole life, I've had profound careers. And I go, man, even in the street, people looked up to me. When I was in gyms, people looked up to me. When I got sober, people looked up to me. When I got jobs, like I got real jobs in my 20s, I was unemployable. I was a drug dealer and a thief. But the fact is that my feelings about me are that I'm a loser and that I'm never going to succeed and that I'm purposeless. And the fact is, when I look over it, that's not true at all. I've been helpful and forthcoming and all that throughout my life, right? And this idea of that I can trust my thoughts is kind of beyond me. So I got to early look into that of like how I need to trust God. Because I can't always rely on my thoughts. And then when I start looking in these other places for where problems might be, I've got to revert back to me. Because as they say, I'm the fish I got to catch. It doesn't matter how disturbed anybody else is. It's how can I be calm amidst my chaos? How can I make less chaos? There's a chapter called Into Action in the book, and they were real clear to tell me there's not a chapter called Into Thought or Into Feeling or any of that, Tait. It's into action. Let's get busy, right? It's where you put your feet. It's not what you think. Think about killing the guy. Don't kill the guy, right? They're different. Teaching me discernment in the most obvious ways. But action ain't the way that I got to be dependent. And that's what I would get confused with. And I'd get my ambitions confused with it. I have to have my dependence on God. And I have to be in action oriented up to that and leave the results up to him. So I got to divorce myself from the work that I do and just do the work as well as I can. And I've got to leave this greater trust up to this God that I don't know or understand very well when I'm new. I got a sponsor when I was brand new, is the most humble guy I'd ever seen. It's called John Lowe. And he was a beautiful man. He had a long gray ponytail. He'd been on a chain gang in Alabama. And he was just quiet and calm and solid. He stood up straight. He was holistically sober. He was physically, mentally, emotionally, intellectually well, right? When I met him, as I saw him, he wouldn't probably say that at the same time. But that's what I'm looking towards. I'm looking to these symbols of going, God, he's like me, and maybe I could get there too, And John spent his most valuable thing he could with me, his time. He'd spend his time, he'd bring me in, he'd think about me. He didn't like popcorn, but he bought popcorn because I like popcorn. He ate ice cream. If there was something that came sketchy on somebody shooting dope on TV or something, he'd change the channel. Let's change the subject. Let's get your head in a good position. And I'm a dude that's only in somebody's house late because I'm robbing them at that time. And John just loved me and picked me up and taught me how to carve leather and taught me how to stick around. He showed me how to meditate. He started a Sunday night meeting right after he met me. And we did a 15-minute candlelight meditation. I never sat still that long in my life, you guys. It was horrible. The first 3 times I did that, man, it was like I was a magnet in the chair. I just needed to go get a coffee or have a smoke or something. Good God, get me. Just breathe, Tait. Just be here. Be where you are. And I love John and I wanted him to love me. I would have never said that then, but that's true. And so I sat in that goddamn chair and he'd say it would get different. And it got different. And I was able to get quiet and I was able to sit with myself for 15 minutes after a few months. And it wasn't always like that, but sometimes there was good days with that. Gave me the key of how to pause when agitated or doubtful. A lot of folks say that. How do you do that? He showed me how. You know, I had this daughter, Olivia, and I was a young man. There were no good answers. I couldn't take care of myself. I'm sober for 5 minutes. Told Andrea I would be as helpful as I could be, but I can't count on me. I just got out of prison and I figured that I've never followed through anything in my whole life. And you can't trust me. I'm not reliable. And saying that, I'll do whatever I can, you know, but I don't know that I'm not going to be locked up again next week or dead. I don't know. And so, you know, it went on and she really didn't like me very much and made it clear around town and all that. And I held my mud. I didn't say a goddamn thing. And I just talked to my sponsor and that was it. I didn't want to create. And to me, that was a level of emotional sobriety. Here's this huge avoiding of a responsibility of a life that's out in the world that I don't have anything to do with. And at the same time, I'm making good choices. And I guess life's like that, you know, it's you make little deals with the devil down the road. And it never felt good for these last 20 some years. There's a part of me hanging out there in the world, right? But she is well. When she was 3 years old, you know, her mom was already married by the time Olivia was 6 months old. And this guy adopted her. And I eased out and I let them have a life, you know? And I didn't know where that would end, but it was a thing. I was like, this is what I'm going to drink over. I don't know how to resolve this. Everybody hates me over there. I don't know. I can't be a part of that at all, you know? But it deepened my prayer life, you know? So I had this 3-legged bulldog and I was in Detroit at that time, helping my mom through a divorce. And we drove out to New Mexico. I was doing a full circle around the country. It looked like. I wouldn't call it a geographic, maybe a walkabout. You know, and I looked through the times of, I don't know, I wrote all this stuff. Like I said, it's good. It's disjointed when I write. So I got a job, right? I got a real job in sobriety. And I was working as a construction worker. And that's horrible. I had so many years like where it's just strapping on bags and be on the job site at 7 a.m. and here we go. And it's cold and this sucks. And here's bad jokes and everything. And then I started fighting. I started doing this thing when I was sober because I was going to kill myself. And this dude said, hey man, you ready to cash your own check? You can do whatever you want in this life. Why don't you try something? What do you like doing? I go, I like getting loaded and robbing people. And he goes, well, let's try some new things. And so I went and I started this kickboxing thing. And then I started doing jujitsu. And then I got good at that kind of stuff. And then I kind of became, it became my whole life, right? And to support myself, I started working in nightclubs. And so I worked in nightclubs for probably 10 years, you guys, while I fought professionally also. At that time, you could fight professionally and not make a whole lot of money. You got to everybody I knew supplemented their income at that time. It was a early sport, this like UFC that you see now or whatever. And so that's what I used to do, is fight in cages. And I wanted to do that ever since I saw it. And first thing I got involved with was a group called the Dog Brothers, and we were full contact stick fighters. And they wanted to see where the artsy part met the martial part and where they separated and where power could maybe decimate art, and art didn't have a lot of, just where all the balance was, because the people had gone up anyway. So that's where I started. And it's a whole nother story. But what I was doing was I wanted to find out more about me, who I was under these austere conditions. Can I thrust myself in these positions, and do I shrink or grow, or what happens? And I just wanted to try things and expose myself in different ways when I was sober. A lot of that was about my early sponsorship. A lot of that was about Bob Earl. He was a guy that I'd heard on circuit. I never met him. He met circuit speaker tapes and stuff. And he would talk about health. And he'd talk about, here we are, we stopped shooting dope, taking pills, drinking booze, and we're drinking coffee by the gallon and smoking cigarettes by the carton. And everybody's 400 pounds. And I was like, God damn, I know that guy. And so just like everything else, I started looking at everybody and going, everybody's a teacher, man. Who do you want to be like? Who don't you want to be like? You know, I'd see cats that were around 12 years, didn't have any recovery to talk about at all. You know how you can just tell some folks, you're like, that dude's never, right? And so, I mean, not to be judgmental, but we know. And if you don't know, go ahead and work some steps. But, you know, seeing those guys and going, okay, if I'm put in that position when I'm 10, 12 years sober, if I can stay sober that long, I'm gonna either have to lie to the guy or make something up. You know, I mean, what am I gonna do? I got to get after this. I can't get out of my head to get to next week. 5 minutes. I was going, just don't drink 5 minutes at a time, you know, and then it'll be just don't drink 5 minutes. And then it'll be just drink. And man, I didn't need it around AA all the time. I was in prayer all the time. I was going, thank you, God, all the time. I was trying to do gratitude lists and appreciations all the time. And so I got deeply into fighting, and it taught me a camaraderie. It taught me efficiency. It taught me function. It taught me to cut the fat away from things. There's no arguments. There's no complaints. There's just work, and let's go. And that's how I really steeled my mind, and I disciplined my mind with that sport and with Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, out of that comes a pretty rigid guy. I was a coach for a while, and I was pretty rigid with guys. I just gave 3 of my dudes black belts, and they're like, would you think you would have done it differently? And I was like, well, yeah. How do you think I should have done it differently? I only knew what I knew, and we're able to talk about that. And I'm able to talk about that and put that into regard with my own father. You know, the guy that I hate that's not using the blinker is also me. The guy that's hating the guy is me. I'm all the guys. And I guess that's what emotional sobriety and some time has given me. I'm all the guys. I've got no call to be mad at anybody. I don't have any rights out here that are like, why are you in front? Everybody deserves to be here, man. You know, like, and when I can let all that stuff go, I get into a lot better position, and that allowance. You know, so I was fighting and working in this nightclub all the time, and I was broke a lot, you know, and I was like, man, I got to make more money. And I'm scheming, I'm thinking, do I sell dope again? I could get these guns. This guy's got a case of Tech 9s. Like, I'm thinking like that. And I don't know, 5 years sober or something like that. And, but I'm poor, and I'm in Santa Fe, and I'm trying to make money, and Santa Fe looks a certain way in pictures and all that. But it's like, most of us are just in the service industry, just trying to get by, you know? And so I start thinking all this dirty shit that I used to do. And then I thought, because I heard my boss talking afterwards, she's talking to her girlfriend at the end of the night, going, I hope we got rent next month. I hope this next Frankie Knuckles party goes off good, because I just don't know how we're going to make payroll. And I go, ooh, I might not have a job at all. And I had a perspective shift that they talk about. I started thinking, if I make it my business to make her more money, I'll do better. It just hit my head like that was just a universal truth. This universal law of reciprocation, right? If I can guarantee that you get yours, man, that's where I get mine. I can't win if you don't win. All those kinds of things started coming up in my mind. And so I really went to work for her. I became a great employee. We had a great relationship for about a decade. Like I said, helped her move into a great big nightclub, ended up stealing from her because I deserved more money, you know, years down the road, right? So I don't know, over the 2.5 months, I stole $300-400, not directly from her, but out of the door of the country western band that came on Sunday nights. Because, you know, it's just $10-20 at a time, and And then thankfully, in short order, I got to make amends for that and make that right. Because I was like, fuck, you don't want to live like this guy, you know, because the prayer John had me say would be, God, I'm not what I want to be. And God, I'm not what I'm going to be. But thank you, God, that I ain't what I used to be. And that's the thing. This dude, Brian Rempel, son of a bitch, he put this thing on me. He goes, how's it going? And I go, Just into some old behaviors. Because that was a thing people in treatment would say, right? Oh, we got old behaviors, or what's your drug of choice? Man, I got no choices. What are you talking about? Anyway, old behavior. He goes, you know about old behaviors, Tate? If they're happening currently, they're not old behaviors. And he goes, that's just how you are. Oh, shit. And thank God that there's that honesty that's out there, that people, thank God that I'm in a place where I'm approachable enough that folks can say stuff like that to me, because that's a prison of itself, of making my life so boundary filled and making me so antagonistic. Who wants to say anything to him anyway? But now I know I got all these blind spots because I read this thing in psychology when I was in treatment when I was 21 years old. And it said something about Johari's window. And there's this part of self that you can't see that only other people can see. And I was like, that's the part that gets me hammered. I got to know about that part. So I'd be brutally honest with everybody around me in hopes that they would also be honest with me. Because I knew most people were only honest about the shitty parts of you if they were mad at you. So if everybody was kind of low key mad, I wasn't upset with that because at least they're going to spit some truth. And I knew that I had to listen to it and go, even if there's 1% of truth in there and the rest is bullshit and hatred, I got to find that truth because that's where I can get a little bit better. And so I started to be real asset oriented like that, and where I pick up messages and stuff. Down the road, I ran the course with this career, and I was bodyguarding at the same time. I was fighting, and I started doing a bunch of that. And I just started thinking about hopes and dreams and what those are, and what would a fulfilled sobriety be like. And I was probably 10 years sober. And I mean, I feel like I was probably a newcomer till I was 10 years sober. I don't know. It's such a big life. I never knew how big it was, you guys. I never knew what limitless growth was really meaning. I mean, it just sounds like things. It's like when I read Marcus Aurelius or something when I'm 15, it means a certain thing. And I go, man, that's my dude. He's got good truths in there. That's right. He's spitting the shit. And then I get to be 35 and I read it and I go, oh, that's a different book. It means truth to me in a whole different way after I've walked the road, right? And that's the way these steps have been. That's the way it's been cyclical with me. I try to continue to stay in it. And so when I stopped fighting, I had a training center. So I started a gym. It was just like, do the next right thing. What do you want to do with your life, Tate? I don't know. But ever since I was 2 years sober and I wanted to kill myself, and that old hippie psychologist said, you're ready to cash your own check. You're free. You can do anything you want. I go, all right. So I'm just going to go towards what happiness is. What makes you happy? And I started thinking about that. And it was a hard thing for me to think about because I didn't really have that. I'd had this depression that I'd had since I was a kid. And I tell you, I've been through the steps a bunch of times and it didn't help me much. It helped me when I'm in appreciation. It helped me when I'm reading the book across the table with you and I start sobbing because it means so goddamn much to me. But I get reprieves, right? I get that daily reprieve even from my depression. I got to build a gym. I got to go through having a staff, empowering people, building coaches. I got to have teams go and people succeed in places where there wasn't a thing before. And it's still going on today. One of my homeboys that I used to, I knew him from the club days because he used to sell dope. And I was clean that whole time. So I knew him in his 20s. And then he ended up getting arrested and doing 4.5 years on this thing. And I helped him before he went in and turned himself in and got him training and working out. And then my girlfriend at the time put workouts together and he put those workouts into the yard and 4 different prison camps. And when he got out, he started coaching for me. And then he had 2 little beautiful boys. And I started getting busy in another part of my life and transferred to him. And this thing is still servicing all these 200 souls that come there every day. And there's stuff like that. When I look at it, I go, man, that's a nice thing to have left, and it feels good like that. Instead of the wake behind me being damage that I left that I got to clean up. I'm not in a continual state of chaos where I'm continually energetically fucking up my garden so that it ruins my future. And now I have a future mess. That's what I'm trying to avoid. I think that's what emotional sobriety might be. John Lowe, my first sponsor, who I said was physically, mentally, emotionally, intellectually on a higher level than other people I'd seen. He got real depressed. I heard he tried to kill himself, but I don't know because I'd left town because Olivia had been born and I was trying to follow her and her mom up to Portland and then, all this stuff. And I just lost touch with him. And I didn't see him
I don't know, I was like maybe 18 or so, somewhere like that. Anyway, this next part of emotional sobriety comes up to me. This idea of the only people you got to get even with, Tait, are people that have helped you. Change your perspective. You're thinking all this nastiness. So don't you have people you need to thank? So I made that the course of my life because I buried somebody that helped raise me that was real close to me, you know? And I thought, man, these people are fleeting, and all the people around at that funeral are fleeting, and they mattered to me. There's guys that wrote me letters to judges. There's guys that put their reputations on the line for me. So I made it my business to go and thank these people and tell them it mattered. You know, I got interviewed in this thing one time and they go, well, you know, how does it feel? You know, you've got success or whatever behind you. I go, I don't know what that means. We'd have to define success. And he goes, well, what do you think it means? I go, maybe that all the people that when I was worthless, that helped me, that maybe they thought that it mattered, that they didn't waste their time on me. Maybe that would be something like that, you know? Anyways, I was on this movie on a job in New York City, and we're in the middle of this chaotic scene. And I'd been reaching out to John's wife, who I knew was a psychotherapist, because when he'd let me come over to their house, she was at a school here for the Southwest Psych. It's like a mental health degree. I forget what it is right now. But anyway, I knew she'd be on LinkedIn. And so I hooked up with a guy that was on LinkedIn, because I'm not really a LinkedIn type of guy. And he found her. And I said, give her my number, you know? And so my phone rings when I'm inside this ballroom with this crazy gunfights and everything. And I answer the phone and I go, hello. And she goes, hey, Tait, it's Pam Lowe. And I go, oh my God. And she starts talking and wants to get me into multi-level marketing and stuff like that right away. You know, she's telling me what she's up to. And I go, hey, is John there? And she goes, no, and it was like maybe August or September. She goes, you just missed him. He passed away last February. And she says, you know, he had Hep C and he was up for new liver, and he got it. They had it for him, and he was 72. And he says, I've lived a beautiful life. You give this to somebody that's a younger man. And I'm sobbing, right? And I go, I just wanted him to know that I did good. I wanted him to know it mattered. And she says he knew, he'd watch, you know. But there's stuff like that. I never got to hug him again, you know. So life goes on, yeah. And I got 3 pages here. So I got a brain injury in 2019 that changed my whole life. It was like being brand new all over again. And I was knocked out for 5 minutes, and I had what they call post-concussive syndrome. Pretty bad afterwards. It still affects me. I throw up almost every day. I get dizzy when I move too fast. And I'm an athlete. I mean, it's not, I'm different, you know, I'm different than I was. And I'm getting better. I used to have neurogenic tremors and stutter, and I'm a lot better. And I'm real fortunate. And there was a softening of me, a vulnerability that I'd never felt before. I thought that people that had anxiety were, I thought it was like you have environmental illness. I thought it was something made up. I thought this is some hope. Like I had no relation to that at all. I was different. And man, I know way more than I ever wanted to know about it now. I can't go to the grocery store sometimes. I try to look everybody in the eye and shake everybody in the hand, but sometimes I get nervous to text people back because I'm afraid I'll be judged in some way. And then it passes. But when it's hot with me right now, because it's been about to rain in Santa Fe for like a week, right? And you can see it coming and feel it coming. I didn't know my head's swollen, you know, it's got you get inflamed when you hurt yourself like that, and it doesn't go away. And so little things change it. The sunshine would be debilitating. A loud noise would make me all that. And so this rain is building, and I have no idea. I'm so depressed. I'm thinking about all sorts of horrible stuff the last 4 days, you guys. And I was really, at the end, I was sobbing every day. And then 5 a.m. the other morning, the rain cracked, and it's a deluge. And it was like, and that barometric pressure crashes and I'm okay again. And, I'm better, you know, this too shall pass. To not make a permanent decision on an impermanent situation. How can I maintain my calmness and my wellness? Because my number one job as a friend, as a son, as a lover, is to take the best care of myself that I can take so that you don't worry on me. So that's what I've been trying to do. I've been in a few brain clinics since then. I've had to put away a lot of old ideas, I guess, about who I'm supposed to be and just breathe and just follow my breath and see what's to come. And God, who are you to build next? Because I don't know, right? But I know that I was well enough to start going through the steps again last summer. And I read a fifth step to my sponsor around August or so, September, and I've been able to get into some amends that to some people that I hadn't hurt anybody. I hurt them pretty badly, you know. And I was lost in the flood of self. You know, I don't mean to blame a brain injury on that. It's just, this is just what happened. And so here I am again, turning to face life of a life I created that I didn't necessarily desire. And a lot of my life of what I was looking at, and I go, I ran after life. I've lived a concussive life. I mean, I've headbutted the shit out of this tree, but I don't begrudge that. Of course, right? Thank God I can get better or hope to. But, you know, there's people that didn't deserve the wake of that, the selfishness of me running after a career as a fighter, as in films or like all this stuff. It's like, I had old ideas. I had ways because I never knew that that thing with Olivia and Andrea affected me years before. I had no idea. I didn't know that left residual stain on me. I didn't know traumas I was in prison or in the childhood or when the police, I didn't know that that stuff left marks more than just the scars on me. And then last August, it became clear to me, you know, and I'm working through this stuff and I go, Jesus, man, I had a horrible heartbreak in my late teens. And then this thing happens with Andrea and I have this date. And I thought every woman you ever dated since then has been an opponent to you. You've got to create boundaries to keep yourself safe from these people. You diminish any kind of relationship or intimacy you can have. You're scared to confront life and commit to it in this one area where God's everywhere else. And here you think this is your job to protect you. It's not my job to protect me. It's my job to be hard on me and easy on you. You know, God will protect me. I'm not scared of what I tell you people because I'm okay and it's just what is. So I knew that all them years with Olivia that maybe one day she would want to see me and maybe one day she would need me. And all I thought these last 26 years, I go, well, maybe if she comes, you could have a safe place for her to be, you know, and she'll need you because life's hard. And when she was 17, she reached out to me and we started having a conversation again. And I've been trying to reach out to her since she was 6. And then I, you know, you feel like I'm in a position, I don't want to ruin their life. There's been all that. There's a whole nother thing. But last Easter, and that's been tenuous since she was 17. Anyways, such a beautiful girl that I got nothing to do with. I mean, as far as her assets, so gracious, forgiving, allowing. You know, we talked for 4 hours on the phone on Father's Day. And then in that call, she's able to tell me, I didn't want to call you because it's Father's Day and you're not my dad, really. It's not like that, but I love you and I wanted to talk to you. I missed your voice. And we're able to talk through all that. And I said, we'll let it develop into what it's going to develop into. But like 2 weeks before that, I was able to spend this Easter with her, you know, and I was able to bring my mom to her and to be around loved ones and to celebrate that and acknowledge. And I've been, you know, I avoided having a relationship. I avoided having a child. I avoided all that because all these other things, because I thought it meant a thing, because I thought in the movie, in the Western, in the whatever character it was, I wasn't the guy with the family. I was the tragic figure that was going through, maybe saved somebody's dog and then went on alone because love isn't for him, right? I don't know if you've seen the best movie ever, Tombstone, but most people watch that and they go, either I'm Doc Holliday or I'm Wyatt Earp. And if you're Doc Holliday, you don't ever think you can be Wyatt Earp. And this last thing, this last 4-step I did, it allowed me to look at things in a different way. I was able to, it said, what are your negotiables? What are your non-negotiables? People talk about this to me about the 4-step, about writing all that down. And then a dude put on me, he says, this is a wrong list. It's not a sexual ideal list. It's a wrong person's list. People you've wronged. Go ahead and color it up, Tait. And because there's a lot of people that were on my 4-step list that I was sore at, but there's a lot of people I owed amends to that I didn't feel any kind of way about at all, that I'd hurt tremendously, right? That's the thing. So I start looking at this new sexual ideal. What's that look like? And I go, it's not a sexual ideal, like, because for me, it was always like how you need to show up, right? You need to be like this, not too much like that, a little like that, It'd be good if you would just follow pages before it says trying to control the show doesn't help very much. Pages after, I'm going, if it shows up like this, I'm in. Anyway, this last time I write it, I'm like, what are your ideals surrounding your sexuality and your energies, Tait? What do you want to put out? Who do you want to show up to be? What must you be to have successful relationship where somebody could feel safe and trusted? So I start looking at all these things in a different way, and I go to endeavor to remedy relationships that I've shattered apart and broken hearts. And it just leads me into a place again where I'm reduced back to this wonderful place of where's God? And God's either everything or God's nothing, right? And so if he's everything, I really want to pull him into everything. And that gets deeper and deeper the longer I'm sober, it seems, because I never knew how compartmentalized my life was really until down the road. And I don't want to have a compartmentalized life because it feels like you're living abridged. It feels like I'm living without a full expression, So Olivia wants to come stay with me. I got a room I just built in my house for her. Her girlfriend loves me and thinks I'm great. And I send her soup when she's sick, and I buy her flowers. And I don't know how to show people that I love them like that. 28 years sober, 51 years old, right? And so I'm just learning all that. I'm not learning. Maybe I do. I'm trying to put this into action. God, let me be the vessel that I want to be. Let me hold the space. What's emotional sobriety? Being able to hold space amongst chaos. Maybe it's that. I went to a funeral of one of the matriarchs in my family 2 weeks ago. And she was beautiful. Her and her husband's still alive. And my father and my mother separated like 30 years ago, 27 years ago. And they haven't spoken. They spoke once when my sister got married 15 years ago, and that was it. And I go and I see my dad, I don't recognize him. And I hadn't seen him in like 5 years. I got sick, I hurt myself, and he didn't really want to, he gets nervous around that. And my whole lifestyle he'd been nervous about. Anyway, I stand there next to him at this funeral with all our family. And he's a guy that had been ashamed of me, that I brought horrible shame onto his family name and all that, all the stuff. And I could tell for the first time ever, he's proud to be standing next to me because the way I've carried myself despite all this, right? And it's because of his reflection, or the reflection of others to him. He doesn't read paper. He doesn't look, but other people say stuff about me to him, and he's like, and it makes him feel good. And I see it happening. And maybe that's not real. Maybe that's, he should just love me just cause, or what. Man, it feels fucking good, you guys. I've never had connection with my dad where it was like that. And his wife loves me, and I'm kind to her. And I make it a point to be. And then my mom comes up behind me because I went to the funeral of her. It was up in northern Michigan. We're in New Mexico. She's standing here. My dad's here and his wife's here. And I go, oh my God. And then the service starts, and we're just standing there in the woods, and they're playing bagpipes and all this. It's crazy. And I go, God damn, I hope somebody gets the picture of us. Imagine that. That would be great. And that doesn't happen. And we got to put cedar boughs on the funeral, on the grave, And Sherry, my dad's wife, goes, hey, they're going to run out of those. You better share. And I go, yeah, you're right. There's not a lot, there's a lot of people there. And I'm giving deference to my uncles and letting people get in line. And they go, no, get up. You're a godson, go. And so I go and I get in line, standing there, and I'm nervous, and I got blinders on. I got anxiety, all this stuff, oh, my mom's behind me. Okay, good. And then my dad and Sherry are right behind her. Weird. And I walk and I go, hey, mama, we're going to have to share. And we go and put this up and we thank Gracie for her presence in our life. And Sherry leans in and says, I told you we're going to have to share those. And I go, I know, right? And then my mom turns around and goes, Sherry, yeah, let's share. And they grab hands and they put it on the thing together, my dad's wife. And they've never spoken before. And I get out through that line and I go, God damn. And I asked him, I said, can we get a picture? And I got this picture of all of us smile. Anyway, the healing that's possible at this point, it dawned on me a month ago, 5 months ago, whatever it was, I'm not going to die young. It's too late for that. Right. And so, but here I am, there's all this exciting shit. And I had no idea. And there's miracles if I get out of the way. It's just me continually getting out of the way seems to be my job. So my dad, he's a certain kind of guy, and people, I don't know, if I got how many minutes do I got left? I was nervous to go this long, and now I'm just a blabbermouth. Anyways.
You take as much time as you want, Tait.
All right. So my dad's a certain kind of way, and he's a hard guy, and all the dudes in my family are kind of that way. And it's and so everybody, when I would go back to my hometown, would go, so how is it with your dad? In this loaded way, right? Like, so how's it? Is he cool? And I always had my position to play with that question, right? For the last 50 years, because my dad's that way to everybody. And, but he's not. I was 9 years sober and I'm sitting in the room thinking, that son of a bitch, he doesn't look at me any different. He doesn't trust me, blah, 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 blah. And I go, Tait, look at you. You still view him as if he's the dude that you were when you were 13, as if he hasn't grown. What's wrong with you? My dad's not the same guy he was, And so it's my job then, just like it's my job to thank people that have helped me. It's my job to get ahead of that conversation before it comes. So when I went back to that funeral, getting ready for that question, all I have is a claim to say about my father. Man, he's doing great. He's in love. It's just beautiful. He's softer than ever, da, da, da. And my dad's hard enough that the way I know that, what struck me so much is that he loves me so much is this thing that wouldn't look like that to anybody else. But I took him and his wife, they went to dinner with me. And then we stay and talk at his house and it's 9 o'clock past his bedtime. And I go, I should go get out of here. I go out to the driveway. He follows me out. He stands in the driveway and talks to me for 45 minutes, right? That's so extreme. And then we'd already hugged because I force hugs on him and it only lasts so long. And so he reaches out to shake my hand after talking 45 minutes. And that might seem this way, that man, it's beautiful. It's as close as I ever been. And it's like him, I know. And there's these things that I never knew my whole life that I get. A dude told me a long time ago, I go, I want to know the answers to this and that, da, da, da. And they were Vietnam vets and sober long. He goes, Tait, you want to know stuff that you can only know if you're 35 and divorced. You go walk a road, have some experience in this life. And it's not until all these experiences and all these softenings and everything, you never know what miracles God will bring together. But I know that I got a finite mind that'll choose A, B, or C. And I go, oh, maybe it's B. Let's get B, God. I need B to happen. And I push away the infinite possibilities of God's expressions of love that my life could be if I just said, just let it unfold, God. Let it unfold, and I'm here for the watering, for the work, for the presence of it. Let it unfold. And it's always better than I can do. And it's getting shown to me more and more that that's true. I can divorce myself from the outcomes in that way. I never thought I'd have a share, you guys, the first time I ever said anything about Olivia or my dad. I never thought that those fractures would be able to heal. I've been living in this impossible hope for all this time about some parts of my life. And look at what God did for me. Part of the emotional sobriety, I think maybe is this looking at blind spots of these obvious things. And I need community to do that. I need you people. I need help. I need balance. I need all of it. I started seeing a therapist today. I'd seen her in 2015 for a while. And part of what I wanted to see her was because she knew me then. And I wanted to know who I was. And how great that she's there and she's got notes and we can talk about that and we can uncover myself and develop myself in a new way, because what I know about healing is something that I never knew before. I used to think healing when I was competing, I'd have a fight coming up and I thought I'd blow a knee out and I go, oh God, I just got to get restored, right? Got to get restored. I got to get back to where I can work on that knee. I got to get back to where I was useful again and I can perform. And after this head injury, you don't get restored back to where you were. You heal into where you're going. I heal into where I'm going. And it's not what was. And if I can let go of thinking that I need it to be what was, man, what a grander life I got in front of me. Because I'm just seeing there's different eras in life, and I never knew that. And to hang on to an era that's not present anymore in my life only causes pain and conflict for me and my people. And so to be in this place of just allowing whatever's to uncover to get uncovered has been new for me. I have new goals that I didn't think I would have before, and I've got a lot of cleanup to do. But it's a joy to be in AA, and I'd really rather hear from some of the other people. And I feel, again, I write these notes. I don't know what to say, but there's a lot I feel like I just needed to download in a meeting today too. And it's been the experience of my life. It hasn't been all rosy and this way and that way. I never had a pink cloud till I was 9 years sober. Thank God. I feel like it would have been like winning the first time you go to the casino. That's not good. You know, I needed to fall in love with the work, and I'm in love with the work because these little layers, as they weave together, it's like I watch these little birds make a nest outside my window. They bring one little straw piece at a time, and then they wipe their butts all over it so it sticks to the wall, and then they bring another one, and then one by one, and this beautiful, intricate thing comes out where life comes, you know. And if I can just wait instead of trying to push life around, man, I can be privy to those things, and I can be a part of life instead of being apart from life. And I can participate in life, and I can take my appropriate position in life, having a hand with the guy in front of me and a hand with the newcomer behind me, and I can be part of that chain that is this undeniable love that, you know, it was a kindness that I didn't have any defenses for when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, that's what AA gave me. I had all my defenses up, and you guys were so goddamn kind and so clear. Nobody's full of shit. Oh, it's going to be, there's no cheerleaders. Oh, you're doing great. It's going to be, no, walk like this, dude, or get this result. There's cause and effect in the world, and it's going to come on your head. You better be clear about, are you going towards a drink or are you going towards sobriety? With every choice you make, start watching your mind. You know, anyways, apparently I could go on for longer, but I really want to shut up. And thank you guys for being here. Let's hear somebody else's voice.
Tait, thank you so much. I really lack the words of depth and gratitude, but you have a beautiful spirit. And thank you so much for sharing it. The way that we lead this meeting is that you get a chance to call on 2 or 3 people, and then I'll open it for folks who want to raise their hands. So are there folks you want to hear from, Tait?
Yeah, I'd love to hear from Pat. Sweet Pat.
Hi, Tait.
Hi.
I love you, man. The light that you shine in my life and others is so bright. Thank you so much. I'm taking more notes with from you tonight. You know, one of the things that occurs to me is that any time that I am dependent on anyone or anything, besides the divine grace that we live in, that we get to live in, I'm setting myself up for an expectation. And most of my expectations can end up in resentment. They certainly end up getting in my way. So as I've learned from the same people that you have, all I really have to do is remember I am a child of God. I didn't know that. I didn't know I belonged here. I didn't know I had a right to be who I am. And in my 70s, I'm learning a lot. It's really great. I don't know what emotional sobriety is. I know that I get closer to who God made me to be just by walking and staying where my feet are and trying to be a good person. People like you have shown me that, and I'm so grateful, Tait. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Pat. And I was just looking at the comments, and I'm really sorry to anybody that I offended. Yeah, I got a brash mouth, and And when I get nervous, I think I probably use words that I ought not. And my apologies. Sorry if that knocked anybody up. Yeah.
Tate, I think the consensus is that we want to hear your heart, and we're just so grateful for you to bring it. So no apologies necessary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who else you want to hear from?
Sam.
What's up? Man, what a great share, you know. Man, I can resonate with so much of that, but you know, like I'm 22 years sober and I've been sober over half my life, you know, and just now it feels like that I'm coming into this place of like becoming more authentically who I am by letting go of what I'm not, you know, like by trying to lay down just these masks, you know, and continuing to shed these masks of even, you know, even Mr. AA guy, you know, like that's a mask for me. Like, oh, I'm Mr. AA guy, you know, like I can, and I would also parrot what I thought different groups of people would want to hear, you know, like I'm ashamed of that, but I'm like, well, I know what gets this group of guys going. They love it when you do this. And I know these guys thought that the 12 and 12 was written by Satan in his basement while Bill was on acid, you know, like that old funny, but you know, I would have, you know, different groups of people who thought in a different way. And now it's just, you know, I learned this survival technique when I was a child. You know, I was trying to almost like hustle attention and care from my parents. You know, and I don't mean to get all I don't mean to get all weird, but you know, one of the major lies that comes up for me in my brain is with current step work is, oh, that's not that big of a deal. That's just kind of bullshit. You know, it's a bullshit inventory. You're just doing it to go through the motions with somebody that you're sponsoring. You don't really, I mean, it's not that big of a deal if it doesn't get done. You know what I mean? Like, or this isn't a major resentment. I mean, these are pretty petty resentments. So this is a pretty petty event. I mean, we'll get to this when all the major business of life slows down and I get a free minute, I'll get back to it. And I just did this inventory that was like that and made myself finish it. God, man, it just ripped my soul open in such a good way. You know, I had all this anger and this rage towards my mom, like just a lot of rage. And I couldn't understand why all these years I had so much compassion for all these other people, you know, and why I couldn't just, why am I lacking this compassion? This rage would just come out. And I saw what it was, exactly what you're saying. The person that I hate is me. These things that I see in me, like, and I saw that, as cliche as that is, I saw these things, like this volleying for attention, this, you know, all these different things that I saw in her that really grinded on me and made me want to lose my temper and lose my shit all the time whenever we were around, was this thing that I was looking in the mirror and I felt like these are characteristics of me that I don't like, that make me an inferior person, you know? And then I had this realization, like, man, you've got like this whole big, like grandiose Messiah complex going on. Like I also saw that too. Like there's this thing that says that you really are the most important person. And these people really do have to hear you. And if this is something that's going wrong here, it's your job to set it straight. And like, I mean, I really had that thing going, that narcissist in me that felt like that I was coming from behind and I was reaching the apex of my potential in an AA and all this stuff. And everybody else was invited, you know, but it wasn't, you know, and there's peace came over me when I realized that I wasn't the center of the universe. And that this beautiful woman, this mother of mine, was doing the best she could with what she had. And that these things that I was so intolerant about was just bullshit in me that I couldn't get over, you know? And then I really did love that woman. And you know, this just, and I leave this inventory, you know, reading it with Tom, and there's several things that were on there that I thought were just petty, but I leave that inventory and I feel this clean wind, that feeling of, like Bill talks about, that clean wind that just feels like it's just blowing through your soul, that feeling of love and peace in the moment. I don't have to try to be anything or go anywhere. I don't have to be anybody that I'm not. I don't have to do any of that stuff. I can just be there in the moment, you know, and that's shit, dude. It took me forever to warm up on this meeting. Chris asked me to speak out of the first of the month, and I was just like, had the first 25 minutes was horse shit. I knew it. They, you know, but whatever, you know. Anyway, Much love to you, and it's so good to see you, and I hope to catch up with you soon, man. Thanks for calling on me.
Thank you, Sam. Great to see you too. Anybody
Thanks, Sam.
else?
Tate, you have, yeah, you have one more you want to call on, Tate?
Oh, Veronica?
Hi, Tate. I'm Veronica and I'm an alcoholic. You know, it was great to hear everything you said tonight. I'm not going to say too much. I'm in a lot of physical pain and I'm in a lot of emotional pain right now. It's been coming for a couple of weeks. And I hear you know, one of the last things you said about this pink cloud, you know, I'm 5 years sober. I've never had a pink cloud. And I just think, I hear people saying, you know, pink cloud. And I'm like, what are they talking about? And it just occurred to me, you know, this nut is a hard one to crack. And when I get my pink cloud, if I ever get to experience that, it will be earned. I don't know if earned is the right way, but it'll be a result of really doing work. I'm at a stage, I'll just say I'm at a stage in my sobriety where I've been running a lot. I mean, I've been running for decades, haven't we all? Well, maybe we haven't, but I have, and it's catching up, and it's catching up in a hurry, and it's really painful. But it's just so good to hear. It's so good to hear it's good to hear what you had to say. I just say thank you very much.
Love you. Great to see you. Hope you feel better.
Thanks, Veronica. Tate, what do you think? Are we ready to open this up? Who would like to, all right, Emerson, we'd love to hear from you.
Emerson, alcoholic addict, brother man, Tate, I loved it. I loved it. You said some incredibly important things. I mean, you did the federal thing. I did the state thing several times. And I liked the way you talked about, you know, that stuff leaves scars on you. It changes your perception. And it took me a long time to like soften up. And if I understood it right, or what I heard was, you know, you started noticing more of these miracles. You notice more miracles the softer you got. And I feel like that's what happened with me. I mean, I was so bound up in self and so tight that there were miracles coming, but I think they were like bouncing off. I couldn't accept them. I couldn't see them. I was unwilling to. And to me, the most important thing you said, and I took it for me, is I started seeing a therapist 3 months ago. Now, people like me don't go to therapists because in my mind, I'm like, how's that going to make me look? Well, idiot, it's going to make you look like somebody that cares about himself, that wants to get better. It doesn't make me look weak. It doesn't make me look soft. It makes me look like, wow, Emerson actually gives a damn about himself and he's trying to get better and he's using all the tools that are available. And I think it's really important. You know, we come from different walks of life and, you know, but we kind of ended up in the same place and had some of the same experiences. But it's really important for me to dig and see what's down there, see what's in there. And I'm not capable of doing that by myself. I need other people to help me. And then the last thing I'll say is, and it really put it in my heart, and I mean that when you said it, is I've had a lot of men in my life and women that never gave up on me, that always tried, that saw something that I couldn't see. They saw past what I thought, like the criminal, the guy in prison, the idiot, the fool, the guy that keeps making these same mistakes, all this stuff, but they saw something different. And I'll never, like when I was in prison in Northern California, a lieutenant, a female lieutenant, this lady used to like, and this, they're not supposed to do it. She would bring me books to read and stuff like that. She gave me like special jobs. And she did it because she saw something different in me. She would tell me like, you don't have to live this way. You can be different. And I believed her. as much as I could, man. And you know what I'm talking about. I mean, this lady actually committed a crime bringing an inmate books because she saw something different in me. So one of the first things I'm going to do when this meeting ends is I'm going to make a little list of some people that helped me that I still know. I'm going to call them and tell them thank you. That was like huge, brother. That was huge. And I mean that from the heart. Thank you. And hopefully we can get your some contact information in there as well. All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Emerson. Really great to hear from you. I see Don next and then Susan.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Tate. That was amazing. There was no need for an apology. Absolutely no need for an apology because we could hear your heart. And I'm a big fan of some language of the heart that's not as tasteful as other people's language. I'm like, some words just need to be used. There's difference between abusing them and there's another way of expressing them. But for some reason, your share reminded me of a couple of things. One of which is, I was for 10 years, I worked on a trauma team, and for 10 years, bodies went past me on a daily basis, and in various states of disrepair. And for 10 years, I never felt a thing about it. And I mean, I was very good at my job because I had no emotion attached to it. And, it's hard to work on people when they're in those positions. And like, it's not like you're in a nice caring unit. You have to actually do things to people that harm them or hurt them. So, and for some reason, your share made me really recognize, how sociopathic that is. And I loved, I knew when I was in there that there was something inherently wrong with me, that I could not be set back by the state of the things that I saw. I was just untouched by it. And I learned, like yourself, I've had, I loved the way you put it, had to put away a lot of my old ideas. And I too had to put a lot of my old ideas since 2015. And I have learned in that time the devastating nature of the trauma that I went through in my life and how it set me on a path that was destined for substance abuse. There was no way on earth I was going to survive the world without something. It just wasn't going to happen. And through through my whole recovery, but it's, since 2015, I lost my husband unexpectedly. And I will tell you that it cracked something open in me because he was probably, my sponsor told me he's probably the first person you ever actually trusted. And I was like, yeah, that's true. Because, I just came to the world with so many defenses. And I love the way you put it. All my partners were opponents. And that was true for me. I was setting up perimeters to protect myself. And, I loved what you said when you said, I did the steps again. I started over. And the reason I like that so much is because, we're in here, we're talking about emotional sobriety. It would be wonderful if the price for admission was time. And what I found is that's not true. Time isn't enough. And, when we get here, they say time takes time, which it does. And keep coming back, all these things. But when you hit certain places in recovery where there is no choice other than to face the truth of your own condition And it's got nothing to do with with drinking. It's got to do with life. And how am I going to walk toward the truth of my soul work? And I hit that wall. I hit that wall. And once again, the steps offered another opportunity to say, we're going this way. Come on, you're going to be okay. We're going this way. And I really appreciated that. I also just so identified. I mean, it just like echoed through my home when you said lost in the flood of self, lost in the flood of self. And I've had that time sober where the only thing that mattered was me. And, you know, what do you have to offer me? And, you know, with years, decades into the program, what about me? How's this going to affect me? And I am so happy to report that I can continue to know that I can go further, and that there are people and positions that offer me to continue to go forward. And we have, you know, it's in the book, it says we help these people get sober, variously tragic situations. We help people stay sober through variously tragic situations too. And can people try to kill themselves in our homes, because alcoholism without a spiritual handshake is a tragic event. And so I really appreciate you sharing the true depth of your experience, and thank you.
John, thank you so much. And then Susan, I see your hand.
Susan, alcoholic. Nice to be here. Thank you so much for your honesty, Tait. Like, you know, that was as gut-wrenching and as truthful as any share I've ever heard, really. And that's what I really appreciate about, you know, some of the leaders that are on this particular meeting, because although the stories are different in terms of, you know, what actually happened, your experience versus my experience, the feelings are just, you know, just gut-wrenchingly, painfully honest, and hits me in a way that really makes me want to cry, because it touches the parts of me that have been so wounded and have been so traumatized by, you know, my early childhood. And then as a result, the way that I put up the defenses to protect myself against anything about, you know, anything around feeling any kind of pain or any kind of jealousy or any kind of sadness or anger, because none of that was okay, you know? And so what I did is I just tried to fix not having those feelings as best as I could by pushing them away, by beating myself up for having those feelings, by blaming other people for how I felt, but never really taking, you know, an inventory of what do I really feel? And you know what, it is okay to feel exactly what I feel. And no matter what it is, and to deeply, you know, allow myself to, you know, have compassion for myself when I get into a place of, you know, deep despair or deep stress or deep unmanageability, which, you know, over the last couple of months has been my world. You know, from the March till now, you know, my dad died. I ended up in a cast for 5 weeks, which was really, really unmanageable. And then out of the blue, my husband was diagnosed with, you know, heart disease and had to end a quintuple bypass. And so, you know, I've just been dealing, like I've had nonstop stuff coming at me, one after the other, after the other, after the other. And like, you get to the point where it's like you can control like one thing, but then when all these things happen, it's like, I can't control anything, you know, I can't fix every feeling I have. I can't, you know, like, and everything makes me crazy now, everybody's here, we got a lot of family and stuff here, nothing's in the place it's supposed to be. And, like, I want my, my fruit in the certain drawer and, like even that kind of stuff is getting me crazy. And the reality is that I have to lean into this as opposed to trying to push it away. And this is why it's happening.
Hello.
And
Yeah. What happened to my yarrow?
and this is why it's happening. And that I have to also realize that I'm not alone. I'm not alone, that I have people to support me. But not only that, I guarantee you every single one of these people, it's a human condition that we all feel this way at different points in time. And this idea of this camaraderie around it, that this is not like this unique, crazy thing that's going on in me, is like, it's almost like a comfort. And that to me right now is my emotional sobriety, and is my emotional sobriety wing that I'm carrying right now, because it's about my leaning into my vulnerability and leaning into my pain instead of trying to make it go away. And that's what I hear from you, what I heard from you, your whole share, leaning into making those changes with your daughter and all the things that you did. It's like you weren't pushing away, trying not to deal with it. You were just kind of leaning into whatever comes next. And the other thing is it's just a minute at a time sometimes, not even a day. Sometimes it's just a minute and one breath after the next. And sometimes that's the best one can hope for in terms of emotional sobriety. And that's okay. Thanks.
Susan, thank you. We're just about at the end of our time. Before we close with our prayer, and Tait, do you have any thoughts as you've heard people
Yeah.
respond? Anything you'd like to share?
Thank you guys all so much. And, there, as they say, there's a wrench in here for every nut that walks in the door. And if I'm not your flavor, somebody else is. And there's a whole bunch of different flavors in Alcoholics Anonymous. And then unfortunately, if it's too heavy this way or that way, maybe drinking wasn't enough. I just didn't have any obstacles when I got here. I don't know how else I could have stayed. What I want to say, one more thing about my daughter, about Olivia, is that all the things that we talk about when we've had, we have a bunch of these conversations where I'm honored that she wants to be on the phone with her old man for hours at a time. It's crazy. It's so cool. And I learned from her, and she from me. She's trying to tell me why they, them matters. I'm trying to say that's plural anyway. And I can hear her, and I'm just learning from this new set of eyes, And but the thing is about Olivia is I don't say anything about her mother, except how is she doing. I don't say anything about the reasons why, because all I did for Olivia from her way is I abandoned her. I left her alone and that's a hurt. And that's what it is. It's not that. And so I have to own that and have to not pretend that that's not what it is, and be brave enough to walk through it and see if she'll love me down the road anyways. But that's where I want to live in that, I'm not trying to, if somebody doesn't find out, I won't suffer. Man, I'll suffer. There's only straightening the books. And thank you all for being here and supporting me. I love you all.
The love is mutual, Tait. Thanks. And I'm just going to take a quick second before I close, and I'll say, Tait, as I listen to you, I was thinking about the me a year ago and the me now, and my head is so much clearer for my step work. I'm 12 years sober, but not 12 years emotionally sober. And so much has happened through this meeting in the last year plus in my life, and things you said last year, Tait, and many others have had such an incredible impact. And so the Chris today compared to the Chris in 2021 is a lot freer. And I'm working on some of those masks and stuff. So I just want to say thanks to you. Thanks to everyone on this meeting. You're a gift. So the way we close this meeting is we go into our internal room and we say a prayer of our choice, and then we come back and thank our speaker. So let's take a moment to pray.